Hi, my name's Rachel, and I'm going to talk to you today about a case of a client I've been working with. I worked with for about a period of 5.5 months, from June of last year till about I don't know, just end of December. I'm gonna call her Sarah. Sarah's a 38-year-old single Caucasian female living in Fort Bragg. She has two daughters, ages 7 and 11. The father is not in their lives. He's incarcerated and has been since the youngest was just born. Sarah came to Project Sanctuary as a referral through Child Protective Services after her children were detained because of child neglect. Sarah was living with her boyfriend at the time and her two daughters, as well as his teenage daughter, in a two-level home. He had been addicted to methamphetamines and very emotionally and mentally abusive towards Sarah, and verbally as well. They were living in a home, and the children were basically living on their own, unsupervised, on the first floor, while the parents lived on the second floor. So for that reason, the children were detained and placed with Sarah's parents, who also live in Fort Bragg. It was considered a voluntary case with Child Protective Services, though she did have a few deliverables that she needed to achieve in order to have reunification with the children. One of the first was counseling with Project Sanctuary, where I work. It's a domestic violence, sexual assault crisis center. And she was going to be working specifically on issues of empowerment and increasing self-esteem, both of which she agreed and was very felt strongly about needing those. Also, completion of an AODP, alcohol and other drug program. While she maintained that she did not have issues with methamphetamines, she did admit to some issues with alcohol. Also, that includes attendance at AA meetings regularly and working with her sponsor. Both of which she did really well with, and was very proud of her sobriety that she achieved in the program. She also had to procure counseling for her two daughters, and because reunification was planned to happen in her parents' in-law apartment, she needed to clean out the space that was there. That had accumulated a bunch of her things, sort of like a storage unit, as she called things, her hoarding issues. So it was quite an undertaking, and also to stay away from the perpetrator himself. We performed a strengths-based assessment soon after commencing services with Sarah. The assessment was a really helpful tool. It helped to have her realize and recognize that she did have a lot of strengths. A lot of her issues were around lack of self-esteem. And so seeing that in the past she had been very functional and successful, both as a parent and as just a member of society. She was not currently working, although she did clean houses one day a month to make a little bit of money. In the past, she had enjoyed being an IHSS worker, and also worked in the hospitality industry, in which she felt very competent and excelled. She had some education. She was very highly intelligent, had a high school diploma. In high school began taking college courses even, and she had completed a phlebotomy certification, which she says she was at the top of her class in, and also an early childhood education courses at the community college. Though Sarah was not living with her daughters, she did still have a very active role in their lives, picking them up from school, bringing them to after-school extracurricular activities, and having meals with them, and earned more abilities to see them as the months went on, till she was finally unified. So for her, getting her kids back and reuniting with them was her biggest priority. Sarah did have some health issues. To me, she revealed that she had in the past been under doctor's care for bipolar and anxiety issues. Though she wasn't currently taking medication or seeing any psychiatrists or licensed therapists for those mental health issues. And those were not things that she ended up, I found out, revealing to the CPS worker that she worked with or to the AODP worker. Sarah was also in what she stated to be a great deal of pain, physical back pain and neck pain. She was under a doctor's care for prescription opiates, and that kind of presented some additional layer of concerns and issues amongst her providers in her life. We worked a lot on issues related to boundaries. Saying no was a big issue for Sarah. She had a lot of guilt and shame around that. Developing healthy coping behaviors. She had a tendency to avoid when she got stressed out. Increasing self-esteem, assertiveness, and empowerment. She, as far as cultural considerations, she didn't talk a lot about ethnic, cultural beliefs or identity, but she did talk about, as a child growing up in the Palo Alto area, an affluent community, she did talk about being of lower socioeconomic status and how that affected her growing up. She says that she endured a lot of bullying. She had a lot of shame around her family's financial situation, feeling that their house wasn't nice, and that her peers all had a lot more than her, and as a younger child that they, teased her about that. So that kind of played into, and when we looked further, probing into the origins of some of her negative self-image, it definitely pointed to those early experiences. Other cultural considerations, the sort of other side of that coin, though growing up she was of a lower socioeconomic status compared to her peers in Palo Alto, when her parents moved up to the Fort Bragg area to retire, they had accumulated a decent amount of financial security, and so they were often in a position to help bail her out financially. She had a very nice car that she drove that they gave her. There was a lot of enabling going on in terms of her not taking accountability and their socioeconomic status enabling them to help her out considerably and to take care of her kids. So those were some kind of cultural considerations. Some of the things that I looked at in the literature that kind of pointed in areas that could be of use to working with her. She had a very strained relationship. She did not feel that her mother was emotionally available for her throughout her childhood and even today. She had a close relationship with her father, but had always had a strained one with her mother. And so I began to look at some issues of attachment theory because of that strain and distance there. We did do some work in CBT. We looked at some mood diaries that she kept, tried to identify some of the triggers that she had for her feelings of inadequacy. And so I think that if I were to have continued seeing her, I would have wanted to look perhaps a little bit more into some CBT trauma-informed CBT. I did do some research and found that a lot of her issues factored into a model called Mauer's two-factor model of escape and avoidance conditioning, which basically stated that in traumatic situations such as those that domestic violence survivors endure, that because of their past experiences, neutral and positive interactions are seen as potential for areas of further abuse, and so a lot of avoidance happens. And looking at that and how that could have played out includes steps related to psychoeducation of PTSD. Stress management, which we did some of, but a little bit further into relaxation, maybe some breathing exercises, self-monitoring of thoughts and speech, trying to correct some of the negative self-talk that she had about herself, and then of course talking about the trauma of the not only domestic violence that she went through with the past relationship and relationships prior, but also throughout her childhood. She had a lot of self-talk related to shame and guilt, of real difficulties saying no to people. So things related to assertive communication, even little things like she didn't feel like she could say no to someone if they asked her for a cigarette when she was outside at an AA meeting, even if it was her last one. So areas around boundaries as well, self-advocacy, and also empowerment. Identifying potential perpetrators to avoid re-victimization is something that we worked on, but I feel like we would have gone in well with the trauma-informed CBT. And then managing unwanted contact with her perpetrator, which she still had some experiences with him here and there. She came in a couple times where we had to go in a state of crisis, and so looking at crisis theory was something that we did together in trying to kind of normalize and de-escalate the situation, both the first time we had contact with her and then one other time towards the end when she encountered her perpetrator out in town. I also would have liked to, there was going to be a RAP meeting set up for herself, for her and with myself and her caseworker from CPS, her AODP worker, and we were going to discuss all at the same time some of the issues. Some triangulation kind of started to happen with her, and so I was really talking about her with her social worker recommending a psych evaluation potentially. I also looked more into shame resilience theory, and we have starting a support group at Project Sanctuary that I think she would have been a good fit and candidate for that group to help look more at issues of guilt and shame around being in the relationships that she has been in and putting her children through the experiences that happen consequently because of that. So that is my case, and thank you.